Many Magic the Gathering players ask the question, is it worth it to buy a Global Series, Zhang Yangu and Mu Yanling? The Global Series is a new, unabashed attempt by Wizards of the Coast to expand their market reach into mainland China by creating flavor designed for Chinese audiences and now made available to everyone worldwide. But is the Global Series a fantastic expansion of the game into an untapped market, or a hollow product that simply wraps up intentionally unplayable cards in pretty artwork? Let's take a look. Global Series Zhang Yangu and Mu Yanling contains the following: two 60-card decks designed to be played against one another, and each featuring one premium foil Planeswalker card. One foil double-sided token. In this collection, there are 30 brand new exclusive to the Global Series cards, which can be found nowhere else. On top of this card exclusivity, 100% of the artwork in the Global Series is brand new, meaning every single card, including the basic lands, has brand new, never-before-seen artwork that is probably highly unlikely to ever be seen again. I want to take a moment to show you one of my favorite products, not as a player, but as a collector. It's right here, and it's the special anime illustrated Duel Decks, Jace vs. Chandra. This was a Japanese language only reissue of the popular Duel Deck, featuring brand new art from Japanese manga artists. I loved this idea. We got a special reissue of a high demand, low supply Duel Deck, and we got the unique and distinct artwork by a celebrated manga artist. It's just a fantastic little product. I always wondered why they did not continue to do this, and I lamented that only the two Planeswalker cards featured the manga-style artwork instead of both decks. So naturally, I thought of Jace vs. Chandra when hearing about the Global Series, and was particularly thrilled to learn of the brand new artwork on every card. That by itself just excites me as a collector. But what really blows my mind is that there are 30, you heard me right, 30 brand new cards available here and nowhere else. You can only get these 30 cards through the Global Series. I don't think we've ever seen a Magic supplemental product do something like that before. 7th edition had 100% new artwork, and Portal also had all new artwork, but unless you count the Precon starter decks you could buy with those sets, then it really is a totally new thing. The closest thing I can think of are the Commander Precons, one of the best Precon products that Wizards of the Coast makes, and how they make just for Commander cards in those, but of course they contain a large number of reprints and reuse old art, so this is something special. All of the art descriptions were given to Chinese artists, chosen with the help of Wizards of the Coast's Chinese team. Even the basic lands are all based on locations, stories, and traditional Chinese representations of those land types. So for collectors, this is really exciting. Magic players love unique Magic art to bling their decks out with. Having lands not available anywhere else to play with at Friday Night Magic or other in-store events is always a real blast. And oh my goodness, the double-sided foil token has a doggo on it. This is beyond adorable. Look at this thing. It's the sort of thing players become obsessed over and want to build entire decks around. Look at the fanaticism we have for weird things like squirrel decks, and now we've got this little dog token. Think of the potential brewing that is going to be hitting people's minds. This sort of flavor breeds excitement, encouraging your players, new and old, to tap into this when designing decks for Friday Night Magic. Unfortunately, the land cards from the Global Series are the only cards from this product that you will get to show off at Friday Night Magic, because none of these cards are legal to play at Standard FNM or even Modern FNM unless you live in China. The cards are legal to play with at your local game store and sanctioned events if you live in China, but not if you live outside of China. And we're talking mainland China, so, well, I don't want to get into the whole one China policy, although Wizards of the Coast apparently does. This policy is very confusing, not just in terms of implementation, but in reasoning. If you live in China, these 30 brand new cards are standard legal, but if you do not live in China, they are not. Wizards of the Coast explained this ruling as being a result of wanting new Chinese players who buy this product to be able to take the cards cards from it down to Friday Night Magic and play. That makes sense. But since the product is being sold worldwide, what about brand new players outside of China that buy this product? It's confusing, or at the very least contradictory, to say brand new players in China will want to play with these cards, but if you're in the USA or Italy, too bad? Newsflash, Wizards of the Coast, all players, not just new ones, but all players, when they buy a product, when they open a booster pack, do you know what they want to do with those cards? They want to be able to play with them at events like Friday Night Magic at their local game store. That's why we buy the cards, so that we can play with the cards. Now, one concern might be that by having standard playable cards available only through a supplemental product, you create an unfair distribution of that card. In other words, if one or more of these cards from these decks started seeing serious play in a competitive deck at Friday Night Magics, then investors might buy it off the shelves so that no one can get it for MSRP, and thus making it unavailable to new players while also causing existing players to feel mad and frustrated. But this is not a real worry when all 30 of the brand new cards in these decks have been designed to be unplayable. Wizards of the Coast explicitly stated that play design was very careful to make sure that the cards were balanced so that none of them were cards for Constructed. They even go on to confirm that Planeswalker decks are intentionally made unplayable at Friday Night Magic, by stressing we're always careful with Planeswalker decks, but especially here, we wanted to be even more careful than normal. And careful means they want to ensure that you're not going to see any good results with these cards if you play with them at Friday Night Magic. So they're unplayable. There's no point in playing with them at your local game store. Can you imagine if for those great Commander precons that have those made for Commander exclusive cards, they said, well, we want to make sure that the cards that we include in the Commander precons are terrible, that you would never want to actually run them in your Commander deck. We work hard to ensure that the commanders like Edgar Markov would never be chosen by anyone as a commander with their play group. They're just a card that looks nice and then you buy it and it's no good at all. That would be insane, right? Well, that's what they're saying here. And thus, we ended up with a product in which meticulous care went into designing characters and artwork for the global series, securing distinguished Chinese illustrators, working with Chinese creators and developers to integrate history and mythology for a full Chinese aesthetic. 30 brand new cards, brand new artworks, a huge undertaking, all to be stapled upon Magic the Gathering cards such as these. Breath of Fire, 1 mana of any color and a red mana for an instant that deals 2 damage to any creature. It's worse than Shock. Cloak of Mists, 1 mana of any color and 1 blue mana. Enchant Creature. Enchanted creature can't be blocked. Who's going to enjoy playing with this? Ferocious Jong, 2 mana of any color and 2 green for a 4/4 vanilla. Armored Whirl Turtle, 2 and a blue for a 0/5 turtle. Exciting. Drown in Shapelessness, 1 and a blue to return target creature to it's unsummon. It's an unsummon for 2. There's 30 of these cards here that you will never put in even your commander deck. Artwork and flavor are but one part of winning over new Chinese players, but I would argue that great gameplay is equally, if not more, important. Make a bad card look as good as you want, but it will still be a bad card. Wizards of the Coast said it themselves. Players want to play with the cards they buy. If the cards are intentionally made bad and unplayable, then players aren't going to want to play with them. You are intentionally designing jank. You are intentionally making an inferior product. Why? In terms of gameplay, these play significantly worse than the average dual deck. This too, Wizards openly admits. I actually found this part of the article after having played some games with these and saying, man, these are worse than any dual deck I've ever played with. And they say that they aimed to place the gameplay more in line with, or possibly worse than, Planeswalker decks. So if you are a fan of or collector of Planeswalker decks, then this is something you should look to add to your collection, I suppose. But if you're you're a dual deck fan, then you're going to be sorely disappointed. And financially, there is not much, if anything, to comment on. The only reprints are a few cards like Giant Spider and Welkin Turn. This is almost entirely new cards, and while the unique artwork and exclusive availability might possibly lead to them becoming collector's items, given the fact that the cards are so weak and intentionally unplayable, this is highly unlikely. Final conclusion? Global Series Zhang Yangu and Mu Yanling offers a trove of brand new artwork, original cards, and unique flavor. For collectors and fans of Planeswalker deck-level gameplay, this category is a solid A. However, the fact that every single card in these decks was designed to be intentionally underpowered, weaker than anything that could be viable in Standard, and essentially unplayable is a huge mistake. Absurd legality rulings in regards to where these are and are not Standard legal is another major error. Watered-down card design is baffling and unappealing, and in this regard, in this category, the product is an outright fail. When your goal is to make bad cards and you succeed at it, don't be surprised at your grade. Ultimately, we are left with amazing effort in terms of flavor on astonishingly weak, uninteresting cards. An A and a fail equals a flat, apathetic C. Try for greatness in all things next time. Make every aspect of your product excellent. Do not aim for mediocrity because you might just hit the target. Such a disappointment. You know, I actually bought 2 copies of these. One to open and use for my review and play test with and have to break out the decks and get games with. Not that I'm going to do so after this playtesting. Again, I'm not a fan of Planeswalker deck gameplay. And I also bought another copy to sit up alongside my Jace versus Chandra. But any day of the week, I would love, and I have one of these opened up as well, any day of the week I would love to pull these decks out to play against each other. Or I have already taken cards like the Ancestral Recall and, of course, the Planeswalker cards out of here to use in my Commander and Modern decks. This is something that has a lot for everyone, from someone who just wants to get casual games to someone who is brand new and wants to see what Magic can really be. And this, unfortunately, is just a shell. It's a pretty one, but nothing more. I hope very much this video has been of some help to you. You can help me out by remembering to like, share, subscribe, or just by leaving a comment. Do you want the Global Series to continue? If so, where are we going after China? India makes a lot of sense, but after there, I don't know, Australia? Canada? Global Series Canada? That would be interesting in terms of Planeswalkers. And this video is brought to you by my and many other people's local game store, Card Kingdom, a brick-and-mortar pillar of this community, as well as the Patreon support of viewers such as you. These are the people that keep Tolarian Community College going and growing strong. So thank you.